At dawn, Elara sat beside the untouched breakfast tray, one hand resting over the medical file hidden beneath a folded linen napkin. Beside it waited a pair of tiny woolen shoes. 5 weeks pregnant. She had rehearsed Darius's joy all night, never imagining he would return carrying another woman's scent. The chamber doors opened without ceremony. Darius entered in yesterday's black formal coat, his collar unfastened, dark hair damp with morning mist. Jasmine clung to him, sweet and unmistakable. A faint crimson stain marked the silver clasp at his throat. Elara's wolf recoiled before her face changed at all visibly. "You were with Seraphine," she said. "Not a question." Darius removed his gloves and placed them beside the fire. His calmness wounded more deeply than any confession. He had spent the walk back preparing arguments, convinced duty would excuse desire. Shame had visited him once. Pride had locked the door. "Yes," he answered. "The council believes this kingdom cannot survive another year without an heir." Elara's fingers curled beneath the table. The medical file seemed to burn against her palm. "Did they order you into her bed?" Darius's jaw tightened. He had expected tears, not a clean blade of truth. "No," his answer came too quickly to soften. "I made a necessary choice." Elara looked at the man she had defended through famine, rebellion, and assassination attempts. He believed her devotion was permanent property. He believed the mate bond would drag her back, whatever humiliation he placed upon her shoulders. Darius drew a parchment from his coat. The secondary consort petition bore Chancellor Merrick's seal. "Seraphine may carry what you cannot. You will remain Luna, provided you accept the arrangement gracefully." Beneath his certainty, his wolf stirred uneasily. It recognized the silence gathering inside Elara as something final and dangerous. Elara lifted the Luna ring from her finger. Moonstone flashed once, cold silver under the rising sun. "You did not save the kingdom," she said. "You traded your honor because fear offered you permission." The ring struck the black table between them. Its small metallic sound seemed louder than thunder. Only then did Darius notice the leather case beneath her hand. Hope, suspicion, and possession collided within him. "What is that?" Elara slid the medical file into her cloak before he could reach it. The tiny shoes followed. "Something you no longer have the right to receive from me now." She crossed to the writing desk, opened a silver box, and removed the royal distress seal her father had given her before marriage. Darius recognized the crest, but not its authority. Elara pressed her thumb against a ceremonial pin. Blood welled bright, then darkened the seal's ancient grooves completely. "What are you doing?" His voice sharpened. Elara stamped the consort breach notice. Somewhere beyond the mountains, dormant wards awakened. Royal steel answered royal blood. "I am documenting your choice," she replied. "And making mine." Darius stepped forward, anger replacing the first flicker of uncertainty in his eyes at last. "Put the ring back on." Alpha command rolled through the chamber, heavy enough to force guards to their knees beyond the door. Elara felt it strike her bones, then break against the hidden Aurelian blood in her veins. She remained standing. Darius stared as if the world had disobeyed him. Elara fastened her cloak. Pain had begun beneath her ribs, the mate bond twisting around the child he did not know existed. Still, her posture never bent. "Your command ended when your oath did." Darius reached for her wrist. Before his fingers touched her, the hall bells began to thunder. The chamber doors burst open. Armored royal guards flooded the corridor, silver cloaks sweeping behind them. They did not kneel to Darius. Every sword lowered toward Elara. Then Lord Alaric Vale entered, placed his blade between king and daughter, and said, "Step away from the heir to the moon throne." The great hall held its breath as Lord Alaric Vale faced Darius across the black stone floor. Behind him, 200 royal guards stood beneath silver banners, their swords lowered but ready. Elara remained between them, pale, upright, and silent, while the lunar ring glimmered abandoned on the table nearby. Alaric unrolled a parchment sealed with crimson wax. "By the ancient consort law, a royal mate who invokes protection may leave any territory without challenge, pursuit, or coercion." His gaze hardened on Darius. "Your authority over her is suspended until the trial of 3 banners determines whether you broke oath." Darius laughed once, without humor. "She is my wife." "She is not your possession," Alaric replied. Darius looked past him to Elara. Tell them this is unnecessary. Elara felt the hidden medical file press against her ribs. It became necessary when you returned without remorse, she said quietly to him. Alaric ordered the royal clerks to seal every council record involving Seraphine, succession, and Alara's health. Darius stepped forward, fury flashing gold in his eyes. But Elara lifted one hand. Do not arrest him. The hall shifted with surprise. I asked for distance, not vengeance, she stated, clear and cold. Alaric studied his daughter, hearing the boundary in her voice, then nodded. Darius mistook restraint for weakness. You will return when the bond sickness begins, he told Elara. You know what separation does. Her face remained still, though their unborn child seemed suddenly fragile beneath her heartbeat. Open the gates. The Ironcrest courtyard was crowded when Elara descended the steps. Warriors, servants, healers, and elders watched her cross the stones she had governed for 7 years. No one spoke. Their silence hurt more than accusation. She carried one small leather case, her cloak, and the dignity Darius had underestimated completely. At the outer gate, an elderly kitchen maid broke rank and touched 2 fingers to her heart. Others followed, quietly, until dozens repeated the gesture. Darius watched from the balcony, unease tightening his chest. He had expected shame to isolate Elara. Instead, grief was turning into loyalty around her departure. Rain began before she reached the boundary oak. The invisible line shimmered beneath the storm, woven from land, blood, and ancient oaths. Elara paused only once. Alaric moved beside her, but she shook her head. I must cross it myself. Then she stepped beyond Ironcrest soil without looking back once. The mate bond tore through her chest like barbed wire pulled between her ribs. Elara staggered, one knee striking mud. Behind her, Darius seized the balcony rail as the same pain slammed into him. Yet pride kept him motionless. Elara tasted blood, rose, and took another step forward alone anyway. A royal guard carriage waited beyond the oak. As Elara climbed inside, the leather case slipped from her numb hand. The lid opened. 2 tiny woolen shoes fell onto the wet road. Alaric froze. Elara snatched them up, but his expression had already changed. Whose are those? He asked softly. Elara. Dr. Mara Thorne pushed through the guards and entered the carriage before Elara could answer. Mara saw the gray lips, the trembling hands, and the way Elara guarded her abdomen. Lie down. Elara resisted. Not here. Another spasm folded her forward, ending the argument without mercy for anyone present. The carriage doors shut against the rain. Mara pressed a moonstone instrument below Elara's navel, while Alaric remained outside, guarding her privacy. Blue light pulsed across the crystal. First came Elara's racing heartbeat, then a second rhythm answered. Faint, swift, and unmistakably alive within her womb that morning, still hidden. Mara exhaled sharply. 5 weeks, perhaps a few days more. Elara closed her eyes. Relief and grief struck together so violently that one tear escaped before she wiped it away. Can the bond hurt the baby? Mara did not lie. If the shocks continue, yes. We suspend it now temporarily. From a locked case, Mara removed the palace medical report bearing Elara's name. She compared it with the private file Elara had hidden beneath her cloak. Dates differed. Ink signatures differed. One claimed infertility. The other showed normal fertility markers and an early conception pattern already present before Darius's betrayal. Mara turned the crystal toward the carriage door as Alaric entered. His face lost all color. Someone altered the royal archive, she said. Outside, the convoy rolled toward Moonwatch Fortress, carrying Elara from Ironcrest and into a conspiracy. Mara lowered her voice. There are 2 heartbeats, and Council knew first. Moonwatch Fortress rose from the northern cliffs like a blade carved from ice. As the royal carriage crossed its iron bridge, Elara watched silver banners snap above black towers. She had left Ironcrest carrying a child, a broken bond, and a name she no longer understood, though everyone here did. At the courtyard, royal guards formed 2 silent lines. Every soldier struck a fist to the heart, then knelt. Elara stopped beneath the hall of banners, discomfort tightening her shoulders. Stand, she ordered. I have accepted protection, not a crown. The guards obeyed, but their reverence remained unmistakable around her. Alaric waited until the doors closed before approaching. He looked older than he had inside Ironcrest, the lines beside his mouth cut deeper by guilt. "Your full name is Elara Aurelia Vale," he said. "Your mother was Crown Princess Aurelia, last daughter of House Aurelian, rightful blood of Moon Throne." Elara stared at him. The moonstone pendant beneath her collar felt heavier than armor. "You let me marry a king without telling me my blood made him one." Alaric absorbed the accusation without defense. "I hid you after your mother's assassination." "You hid the truth," she replied. "That is different." He led her into the bloodline archive, a circular chamber sealed by 7 stone doors. No keyhole marked the central vault. Alaric gestured toward her pendant. Elara pressed it into a moon-shaped hollow. The stone warmed, recognized her pulse, and opened with a groan that shook dust from the ceiling. Inside lay succession scrolls, coronation records, and a crown carved from moonstone. Elara found her mother's handprint pressed into a blood oath beside Alaric's signature. Their secret had not been improvised. It had governed every alliance, marriage, and war surrounding her since birth. The realization left her colder than betrayal. A second scroll carried Darius's coronation seal. The ancient text was mercilessly clear. Blackthorn rule over the united realm remained lawful only through marriage to an Aurelian heir. If the consort oath was broken before moon coronation, legitimacy returned to the bloodline. Elara read the clause twice in stunned silence. Before Alaric could explain further, war horns sounded across the fortress. A messenger entered, mud streaking his uniform. The eastern grain convoy vanished below Frost Pass. Alaric reached for the map table, but another voice came from the doorway. "It did not vanish," the newcomer said. "Someone redirected it on purpose." Alpha Lucian Storm stepped inside, wearing a travel cloak crusted with snow. A scar crossed his jaw, and Eastern Command silver marked his shoulder. Elara recognized him immediately. 2 years earlier, they had negotiated the grain treaty that prevented Stormhaven and Ironcrest from bleeding each other across 3 mountain passes. Lucien did not bow. He placed 3 route maps before Elara instead. "Your father says you designed Ironcrest's winter network." His tone held respect, not trust. "Then tell me why 40 wagons disappeared where no raiders were seen." Elara welcomed the challenge more than the reverence around her that day. She examined wheel depth, guard rotations, and weather marks. One map showed a bridge closed by avalanche. Another recorded it open. The convoy master had obeyed a council order to take Hollow Road, an abandoned military route leading toward Voss warehouses. "This is theft disguised as emergency logistics," Elara said. Lucian's eyes sharpened. He had expected intelligence. He had not expected speed. "How do you know the order was added later?" Elara touched a faded red notation. "Ironcrest clerks mark winter diversions in blue. Council uses red wax, but only after royal approval. The king never countersealed this order officially." Alaric ordered riders toward Hollow Road. Lucian remained beside Elara while the chamber emptied. "Darius often took credit for plans bearing your handwriting," he said. She looked up sharply. "You noticed?" Lucian's expression hardened. "I noticed who understood supply lines, and who merely signed at the bottom of them afterward." Their eyes held for one quiet second, not intimate, but equal. Then the central vault began to hum. Moonlight spilled through no window, crawling across the floor toward Elara, her pendant lifted from her chest. Alaric returned just as the crown awakened beneath its glass cradle and turned toward her. One by one, the 7-pack emblems carved into the walls ignited with silver fire. Lucien stepped back, astonishment breaking his discipline. Alaric lowered his head, not in command but recognition. Elara stood motionless before the moonstone crown as the entire fortress whispered the name her father had buried. Aurelian. By sunrise, Moonwatch had become a fortress inside a fortress. Royal guards sealed the eastern archive, healers monitored Elara, and messengers crossed the courtyard, carrying reports from the missing grain convoy. Elara stood in the war room, studying 3 ledgers while Lucien watched from the opposite side of the table. He had removed his travel cloak, but snow still melted along his dark sleeves. A thin scar cut through his lower lip. making his silence look harsher than it was. Elara ignored his scrutiny and turned another page. Numbers steadied her in ways sympathy never could, especially after betrayal now. Lucien tapped the first ledger. Moonwatch received 800 sacks last month. Stormhaven received 600, yet Ironcrest reported sending twice those amounts. Elara compared the seals, then held one page toward the lamp. Beneath the fresh ink, an older entry had been scraped away with powdered silver and oil. The totals were changed after Darius approved them, she said. Someone diverted grain, then made the shortages look like royal mismanagement. Lucien crossed his arms. Can you prove which office? Elara pointed to a narrow crescent pressed beside the council mark. House Voss uses this private accounting stamp on internal transfers. Lucien studied her with open caution. If this reaches trial, Merrick will claim you invented it to weaken the council. Elara met his gaze. Then we do not accuse him yet. We trace every missing shipment, recover one wagon, and find a driver willing to survive a silver truth test. For the first time, approval softened Lucien's expression. He had expected a wounded Luna seeking revenge. Instead, Elara was building a case strong enough to withstand hatred, politics, and grief. You think 3 moves ahead, he said. No, she replied. I learned what happens when others do not plan carefully. Dr. Mara entered carrying 2 locked medical cases. Her mouth was tight with anger. I found the archive copy of your fertility assessment. She placed it beside Elara's private file. The royal version declared infertility. The original showed healthy markers, normal cycles, and probable conception before Darius left for council. Elara's hand closed over the table edge. The room seemed to tilt, though she remained standing. Who signed the false report? Mara opened the second case. Physician Corvin. He vanished yesterday. Lucien's wolf stirred beneath his skin. Convenient. Mara nodded. More than convenient. His family crossed into Voss territory overnight. Elara looked at the date again. Darius had seen a preliminary note 3 days before his affair. He had known further testing was required. He had chosen the conclusion that frightened him most because it excused what he already wanted. That realization hurt more cleanly than jealousy had ever managed. Lucien stepped closer, then stopped before entering her reach. Do you want the room cleared? The question surprised her. Darius would have dismissed everyone himself, deciding privacy for her. No, Elara said. I want witnesses. Copy both files. Seal them beneath 3 banners before anyone alters them again or disappears. Later, Lucien escorted her through Moonwatch's western wing. No servants followed, no guards crowded her shoulders. He opened a quiet chamber overlooking the frozen valley and placed an iron key in her palm. The lock turns only from inside. You decide who enters, including me. Elara stared at the key. Such a small object should not have unsettled her. Yet Darius had never asked what made her feel safe. He posted guards, chose rooms, issued commands, and called control protection. Lucien waited without filling the silence. How many guards? He asked. 2, Elara answered. Beyond the stairs, not outside the door. Lucien nodded once. Done. He turned to leave, but Elara stopped him. Why did you believe my grain calculations 2 years ago when Darius dismissed them? Lucien glanced back. Because your numbers saved 12 villages. His pride nearly starved them. The answer carried no flattery, only memory, and that mattered. After he left, Elara locked the door herself. She placed the iron key beside the tiny woolen shoes and opened Mara's copied report. At the bottom, beneath the original physician notes, appeared a registry mark used only when a record had been reviewed personally by the reigning monarch before approval. Elara's breath stopped. Darius had not merely received a council summary. He had opened the file himself before Seraphine entered his bed. Outside, Lucien halted as the ward bells rang from the archive tower. Inside, Elara read the date once more and whispered. He knew doubt remained, and chose betrayal. 3 days after Elara left, the warmth vanished from Ironcrest. The pack wards flickered at dusk, grain wagons failed to arrive, and healers began rationing medicine. Darius stood in the council chamber while 6 elders argued over shortages. Elara had warned them about months earlier, in reports nobody had read. He returned to her office after midnight. Maps covered one wall. Winter schedules filled another. Every shelf held labeled ledgers, emergency routes, and sealed instructions for disasters he had assumed would never come. Her handwriting was everywhere, precise and patient, protecting a kingdom that had watched her leave without protest. Darius opened a blue ledger and found a note beneath his signature. Northern clinics require moonroot before first frost. He remembered dismissing the request as excessive. That morning, 3 clinics reported empty stores. For the first time, regret arrived without jealousy. It came as the weight of preventable suffering alone. Seraphine entered wearing Alara's ceremonial silver cloak. It hung awkwardly from her narrow shoulders, but triumph brightened her face. "The council is waiting," she said. "They need reassurance." Darius looked at the embroidered Aurelian moons and felt something inside him recoil. "Take that off," he ordered before he understood why. Her smile tightened. "You said I would stand beside you. I said the council would consider your position." Darius closed the ledger. "You are not Luna," Seraphine's scent sharpened with anger. "Then make me one. The Pax needs certainty, and I am carrying the future you wanted from me now." The claim struck him harder than expected. His wolf did not rejoice. It paced beneath his skin, restless and suspicious, searching for the second heartbeat. The bond refused to confirm. Still, the elders were gathering. Rebellion rumors were spreading, and Darius chose appearance over instinct one more time that morning. In the great hall, Seraphine sat in the Luna's chair before permission was given. She ordered medicine removed from border clinics and sent to the capital, arguing royal families required priority. Marcus objected. Darius read Alara's blue ledger, then canceled Seraphine's command publicly, humiliating the woman he had defended recently. The elders began whispering. Without Alara, every decision exposed another gap. Trade envoys demanded answers. Smaller pacts threatened withdrawal. Treasury doors remained sealed under royal protection law. Darius felt his authority shrinking, not because enemies had grown stronger, but because the woman supporting it had finally removed her hands entirely. That evening, Chancellor Merrick arrived with the Luna ring inside a velvet box. "The realm needs a visible transition," he said. Darius stared at the moonstone. A silver thread still glowed deep within it, pulsing with Alara's distant heartbeat. He should have refused. Instead, he summoned the court at once. Seraphine extended her hand before the assembled pack. Darius slid the ring onto her finger. For one breath, nothing happened. Then the moonstone turned black. Smoke curled from Seraphine's skin as she screamed and tore at the band, but the metal tightened, rejecting her blood with ancient fury and judgment. Marcus used a silver knife to cut the ring free. A burned circle remained around Seraphine's finger. The moonstone cleared the moment it touched the floor, its hidden silver light returning. Pack members stepped backward. Even Darius could no longer pretend the ancient artifact had accepted his chosen replacement willingly. Seraphine clutched her wounded hand against her chest. Fear flashed across her face, quickly transformed into calculated tears. "It rejected the ceremony because we waited too long," she cried. "But none of that matters now." She looked directly at Darius and placed her uninjured palm over her stomach. Deliberately then, "I am carrying your heir." The hall erupted. Merrick demanded celebration, but Darius heard only the absence of certainty inside his bond. He approached Seraphine slowly. "You will be examined by a physician outside your father's control." Merrick stepped between them. Council privilege protects a royal mother from such indignity. Darius's suspicion sharpened. Before he could challenge Merrick, a royal messenger entered beneath a white flag. His cloak bore Moonwatch silver, and his hands carried a sealed notice. The messenger refused to kneel. "By order of the 3 banners," he said, "this document must be read publicly now before witnesses." Darius broke the seal. The notice listed 2 women under royal maternal protection: Seraphine Voss at Ironcrest and Alara Aurelia Vale at Moonwatch. His vision blurred when he reached the final line. 2 women claimed royal heirs, the document stated, but only 1 medical record contained a confirmed living heartbeat. The notice remained in Darius's hands long after the messenger finished speaking. Alara was pregnant. The truth should have filled him with joy, yet it entered his chest like a blade. She had been carrying his child while he defended another woman, another bed, and a future built on fear. Across the hall, Seraphine pressed one hand over her stomach and performed outrage for the watching pack. Merrick demanded the notice be declared propaganda. Darius barely heard them. His wolf had gone silent, crushed beneath the memory of tiny woolen shoes he had never seen, and a goodbye he deserved. At Moonwatch, Mara placed 3 sealed files before Alara, Alaric, and Lucien. The first was the original fertility report. The second was the altered palace copy. The third contained blood tests, proving Seraphine had used moonroot serum, a drug that mimicked pregnancy symptoms without creating a living heartbeat at all. Alara studied the evidence without touching it. Her face remained calm, but Lucien noticed her thumb press into the iron key he had given her. Pain moved through her body in careful waves. She refused to let it become spectacle. Who authorized the alteration? She asked Mara at last, quietly. Physician Corvin signed it, Mara said. But council registry records show Chancellor Merrick requested the final wording. She turned another page. Darius reviewed the file before his affair. He saw that further testing was required. He did not know you were pregnant, but he knew infertility was never confirmed then. The room became painfully still. Alara had imagined many versions of Darius's betrayal, none wounded like this one. He had not acted because truth cornered him. He had accepted an uncertainty as permission, then returned, expecting her to absorb the consequences. Her child shifted faintly beneath Mara's moonstone warmth again. Alaric placed the Aurelian succession scroll beside the medical records. 7 ancient seals marked its edge. The realm must know what council tried to erase, he said. Alara, if you claim your blood right, Darius loses authority over the crownlands, royal guard, and every tax sworn to your mother's line forever. Alara looked toward the moonstone crown behind its glass cradle. And if I refuse? Alaric answered without hesitation. Then no one forces you. Your blood gives you the choice, not the duty. Lucien watched Alara breathe through another bond spasm, admiring the father who finally understood what protection required most. Representatives from the 7 packs gathered before sunset. Elara entered without a crown, wearing only her mother's pendant and a plain gray dress. Elaric announced her lineage, then stepped aside. The choice belonged to her. Alara placed one bloodied thumb upon the scroll, and every seal awakened silver before them. Far away, the same light erupted across Darius's throne. A crack split the blackthorn crest above him. The pack gasped as royal wards withdrew from his command. Then the mate bond opened for one terrible instant, carrying Alara's fear, the child's fragile pulse, and the grief she had buried alone. Darius dropped to one knee. He finally understood what the medical notice had meant. Alara had crossed the boundary believing council might take her baby. She had hidden the truth not to punish him, but to protect their child from the men he had trusted over her word and dignity. Before he could rise, another messenger entered Ironcrest, carrying an arrest order. It accused Alara of abducting the royal heir, stealing sovereign records, and conspiring with Stormhaven to seize the throne. The command bore Darius's royal seal and his exact signature, yet he had never seen the parchment before today. Merrick moved quickly. Your Majesty, this proves she planned everything. Darius stared at the forged signature. The shape was perfect, but the pressure mark beneath the seal curved left. His signet always struck right because of an old sword injury. Someone had copied his authority and weaponized his shame carefully. At Moonwatch, a guard delivered the matching order to Alara. Lucien read it once and reached for his sword. Alara stopped him. No war. She examined the route attached to the warrant. It directed Royal Guard through Black Ravine, where cliffs narrowed and old silver mines remained dangerously unstable below. Mara touched the false seal with a silver probe. Black smoke rose from the wax. This was made inside the Royal Archive, she warned. Alara folded the arrest order and looked toward the eastern road. Council was no longer hiding its intentions. It wanted both mother and unborn heir removed. The royal convoy entered Black Ravine beneath a sky the color of bruised iron. Sheer cliffs pressed close on either side, swallowing wind and sound. Alara sat beside Mara, studying the false arrest order while Lucien rode ahead, his wounded distrust sharpened by every unnatural silence around them that morning. 3 miles inside, Alara noticed wagon tracks disappearing beneath fresh gravel. The escort captain claimed recent repairs, but no rain had fallen to settle the stones. She touched the route map, then looked upward. Loose silver ore glittered along the cliff face where miners had abandoned blasting tunnels decades earlier. "Stop the convoy," she ordered. Captain Wren hesitated, glancing toward Lucien as though authority required a male voice. Lucien turned in his saddle. "You heard her." Elara ignored the insult and pointed toward the narrow bridge ahead. "They want us crossing when the charges ignite beneath the stone at once." The first arrow struck before the wagons fully halted. Council soldiers rose from hidden ledges, crossbows flashing. Elara did not duck blindly. She counted their positions, saw which ridge remained unguarded, and ordered the children, healers, and record chests moved into an abandoned drainage tunnel behind the convoy for cover. Lucien split the guards into two lines, one shielding civilians while the other returned fire. A silver bolt ricocheted from a wagon and tore through a healer's shoulder. Lucien crossed open ground, dragged the woman behind cover, and took a second bolt across his ribs before reaching safety with her. Elara dropped beside him, pressing folded cloth against the wound. "You protected the healer." Lucien's mouth tightened against pain. She was carrying the truth test records. Elara met his eyes. He had risked himself for evidence and a life, not because he believed she needed a heroic rescuer beside her. She gave Mara control of Lucien's injury, then climbed onto the lead wagon. Remembering the old mining plans, Elara ordered guards to fire burning pitch into the eastern ventilation shaft. Smoke erupted behind the attackers, exposing their hidden line and forcing them away from the bridge charges entirely within moments. The convoy escaped through the drainage road, while royal guards captured 3 soldiers. One prisoner carried a Moonwatch insignia beneath his council armor. Alaric's warning returned to Elara. An assassin had entered the royal guard. She memorized the traitor's face before ordering him bound with silver chains immediately for trial. At Ironcrest, Darius searched Seraphine's chambers without announcing himself. Her drawers held no baby clothes, only moonroot vials, forged correspondence, and a bronze mold shaped precisely like his royal seal. The evidence smelled of bitter almonds and betrayal, but this time he could not pretend ignorance protected him from guilt. Seraphine appeared in the doorway, her burned finger wrapped in silk. Darius held up the vial. "There is no child." Her face collapsed, then hardened. "There was supposed to be." Once Elara disappeared, my father promised the physicians would confirm whatever the realm needed to hear from its new Luna. Darius's wolf surged, but he forced his claws back. "Did you alter Elara's medical file?" Seraphine laughed shakily. "You wanted it altered. You saw uncertainty and called it failure because certainty would have required patience. Her cruelty landed because it carried enough truth to wound him deeply, beyond all denial." Under Darius's questioning, Seraphine admitted the false pregnancy and Council's plan to replace Elara. She insisted she had never agreed to murder. Merrick had promised only exile, public disgrace, and permanent custody of any Blackthorn heir. Then Darius opened the final letter hidden beneath her jewelry case inside the wardrobe. The order carried his copied signature and commanded the Black Ravine attack. It instructed soldiers to recover the bloodline scroll, destroy medical evidence, and leave no surviving witnesses. Darius read the words twice. Understanding his pride had given Merrick the perfect weapon, a king whose failures already resembled deliberate cruelty. He sent copies to Alaric beneath 3 independent seals and offered himself as a witness. He did not ask Elara to forgive him. He asked only that the records reach her before Merrick's soldiers did. Then he removed his crown and stared at the empty Luna chair opposite him silently. At Moonwatch, Elara received Darius's evidence while Mara cut the silver bolt from Lucien's side. The captured assassin finally spoke under truth serum, naming Merrick and revealing the order's second target. Elara unfolded the blood-stained page. Beneath her name were 6 words: "Eliminate the child before bloodline confirmation at trial." Royal banners appeared above Ironcrest at noon, silver against a smoke-stained sky. Elara rode at the center of the convoy, wearing her mother's dark mantle and moonstone pendant, but no Luna ring. Lucien followed beside her, one hand pressed discreetly against the bandage beneath his uniform coat as horses slowed. The outer gates opened, revealing pack members crowded along the courtyard walls. Darius waited on the great hall steps without his crown. Elara looked at him only long enough to confirm he was unarmed, then turned toward Marcus. How many children remain near the eastern grain district after last night? Her question unsettled Darius more than anger would have. She had returned to the home they shared, yet she did not ask who occupied her rooms or whether Seraphine still breathed free air. Marcus answered that 43 children and 12 elderly wolves remained because evacuation wagons had never arrived there. Elara dismounted before anyone offered assistance. Send food, healers, and covered carts. No royal procession enters the hall until civilians are safe. One council loyalist scoffed that she lacked command over Ironcrest. Before Alaric answered, the eastern alarm bell began hammering through the courtyard, violent and continuous overhead without pause. Black smoke rose beyond the grain district. Council soldiers had ignited storehouses and sealed the northern street, trapping families between fire and the old wall. Panic spread instantly. Darius reached for authority, but Elara was already unfolding, the pack ledger Marcus carried beneath his arm and mapping every occupied building. Open the old brewery tunnels, she ordered. Move children through the western cellar. Put wet hides across the passage mouths and station archers above the cooper's roof. Darius recognized the plan. Elara had designed those tunnels as winter escape routes, then watched him postpone funding their reinforcement for 2 years. Lucian stepped forward despite Mara's warning glance. His wound had reopened beneath the bandage, darkening his coat, but he did not take command from Elara. He relayed her orders to Stormhaven soldiers and positioned himself where she requested, guarding the tunnel entrance rather than hovering protectively at her side again. Darius heard the distinction. Lucian trusted Elara publicly where he had doubted her privately, and the comparison burned without mercy. When Elara ordered Ironcrest warriors to abandon the ceremonial gate and reinforce the eastern roofs, Darius repeated her command through the pack bond. Not one soldier questioned it afterward again. Elara entered the smoke with Mara and 3 healers, directing families toward the tunnels, while guards contained the flames. A collapsing beam struck the street behind her. Darius crossed the distance instinctively, but stopped when she raised her palm. Hold the southern line, she said. This time, he obeyed immediately. The last child emerged coughing beneath a blanket as rain finally began. Pack members watched Elara kneel in soot, checking burned hands and counting survivors herself. She had returned with royal guard, but it was not inherited power that silenced their suspicion. It was proof of who she had been. By dusk, the district was secure. 55 civilians stood accounted for, the grain reserve had been moved, and 3 council soldiers were captured alive. Elara returned to the courtyard with soot across her cheek. The moonstone pendant on her mantle glowed above the place where the Luna ring once rested. Darius descended the hall steps and stopped several feet away. You saved them. Elara handed the smoke-blackened ledger to Marcus. I corrected a failure that should never have been allowed. Her words were not cruel. Their accuracy hurt worse. Darius lowered his gaze before the pack he had once commanded. Alaric ordered the great hall prepared for the trial of 3 banners. Elara walked inside without touching Darius or the abandoned Luna chair. Lucian followed more slowly, one hand against his bleeding side. When she noticed, she summoned Mara, but Lucian refused to leave until the fortress was secured again. In the center of the hall, Alaric placed the bloodline scroll beside the medical file, false seal, moonroot vial, and assassination order. Every symbol of the conspiracy lay exposed under torchlight. Council representatives gathered on one side, pack elders filled the other. Royal guards blocked every exit without speaking once. Alaric turned toward the assembled soldiers. Until this trial ends, whom does the royal guard recognize as lawful sovereign protector? Steel whispered from 200 scabbards, every sword lowered toward Elara, not Darius. The sound rolled through Ironcrest like judgment, and the trial of 3 banners officially began before all. The great hall doors closed behind the final witness, sealing nobles, soldiers, healers, and pack elders beneath the vaulted roof. Elara stood before 3 banners without a crown. Darius occupied no throne. He waited beside the broken blackthorn crest, stripped of ceremony, while Merrick and Seraphine faced silver chains together. Mara opened the original medical file and placed it beside the altered copy. Under silver light, the false ink turned green. She explained the fertility results, the missing signatures, and the moonroot serum found in Seraphine's room. Every sentence removed another shield from the woman's carefully constructed innocence before everyone. Seraphine denied everything until the clergy fastened a silver veracity chain around her wrist. The metal brightened with each lie. Sweat gathered above her lip. Finally, she admitted the pregnancy was false, the affair deliberate, and the medical fraud designed to make Alara appear useless to the throne forever and barren. When asked whether Darius had forced her, Seraphine looked toward him, desperate for rescue. He did not move. "No," she whispered. "He chose me." The words struck Alara with remembered cruelty, yet she remained composed. This trial was not about proving she had suffered. It was about proving conspiracy, publicly. Chancellor Merrick demanded the proceedings end, claiming royal authority protected council decisions. Alaric answered by presenting the grain ledgers, forged seal mold, and assassination order. Lucien, pale beneath his uniform from the ravine wound, testified that the convoy had been directed toward explosives by men carrying Merrick's private insignia openly. Merrick called Lucien a rival seeking the crown. Lucien did not react. Alara stepped forward instead and traced every stolen shipment from Ironcrest to Voss warehouses. She named villages that had gone hungry while Merrick sold grain abroad. Pack elders began turning from the chancellor in visible disgust and horror. Cornered, Merrick accused Darius of authorizing everything. Silence spread as Darius approached the evidence table. For years, he had believed kings survived by never appearing weak. Now he understood that refusing responsibility was the weakness that had endangered Alara, their child, and every pack, depending upon his judgment for survival. He placed his royal seal on the stone. "I was manipulated," he said, "but I was not controlled. I saw uncertainty and used it as permission. I betrayed my mate because fear mattered more to me than her dignity." Then he broke the seal beneath his hand, before everyone watching. The crack echoed like a sentence. Darius surrendered command of the Royal Guard, Crownland taxes, and United Pack Authority. He gave Merrick's correspondence to the clergy and offered himself for silver veracity questioning. No plea accompanied the sacrifice. For the first time, he paid before asking to be believed again fully. Under the truth chain, Merrick confessed to forging Alara's records, stealing grain, creating the arrest order, and commanding the assassination. He claimed he had acted to protect stability. Alara answered that stability purchased with murdered mothers and starving children was merely tyranny wearing legal robes before frightened men everywhere present. The three banners found Merrick guilty of treason and Seraphine guilty of fraud, conspiracy, and attempted usurpation. House Voss assets were frozen for restitution. When the judgment ended, every emblem above Alara ignited silver, confirming her as sovereign heir. Still, she did not reach for the crown yet that night. Darius faced her across the ruined hall. "I will not ask you to restore our marriage," he said. "I ask only for the chance, someday, to prove I can be a father who does not use blood or rank to control you." Alara heard sincerity, but sincerity was not repair. "You may earn the right to petition," she replied. "Nothing more." Darius bowed, accepting the boundary without argument. That obedience hurt him, but he understood pain no longer entitled him to comfort from her. Alara turned away before the mate bond could confuse grief with renewed trust in him again. Lucien approached after the hall emptied. He carried no ring, only a blank courtship oath bearing Stormhaven's seal. "No claim," he said. "No deadline. No expectation." He placed it beside Alara's hand without touching her. She looked at the unsigned parchment, then at the Alpha, who waited without demanding anything. That night, clergy opened the moonstone altar for Alara's final decision. Upon the white stone rested two documents, one restoring Darius as mate and royal consort, the other severing their bond forever. Alara entered alone, carrying her mother's pendant, while both men remained outside the sealed silver doors in silence. Moonlight poured across the moonstone altar as Alara entered alone. Two documents waited upon the white stone, one restoring Darius as mate and consort, the other severing their bond forever. Her mother's pendant warmed against her throat, while the unborn child moved quietly beneath her heart within the sacred silence. Darius stood beyond the silver doors, stripped of crown, command, and certainty. Lucien waited farther down the corridor, his healing wound hidden beneath a dark uniform. Neither man attempted to enter. Elara understood the difference between being abandoned and finally being allowed to choose without pressure for herself at last. She lifted the restoration document first. The parchment promised renewed strength, shared rule, and relief from the bond pain. Once, she would have mistaken those promises for love. Now she saw what they truly offered. A return to the place where her dignity had become negotiable whenever fear entered his heart. Elara set it down and opened the severance decree. "I do not choose this to punish him," she told the moon clergy. "I choose it because love cannot survive where respect must be begged for. My child will know her father, but she will never become a chain between us." She pressed her blood beside the final seal. The mate bond tightened violently, dragging every memory through her chest. Darius laughing in summer, kneeling beside wounded soldiers, holding her after nightmares, and returning at dawn scented with another woman. Elara honored the love that had existed, then released it completely. Outside, Darius fell to one knee as the bond dissolved. No command could stop it. No apology could reverse it. He felt Elara's grief leave him, and the emptiness afterward was worse than pain. Still, he did not strike the doors or demand another chance from her that night again. When Elara emerged, Darius rose slowly. His eyes were red, but his posture remained controlled. "I accept your decision," he said. "I will serve 3 years at the northern border without title. After that, I will petition only for supervised visits with our daughter, if you believe I have earned them." Elara studied him, searching for the arrogance that once filled every silence. She found remorse, but remorse did not erase consequence. "Her name will be Aurelia," she said. "You may become her father through patience and truth. You will not become my husband again." Darius bowed once, accepting both sentences. Merrick was sentenced to life imprisonment within Moonhold, where no Alpha command could reach beyond silver walls. House Voss lands were seized, and stolen grain wealth returned to the villages he had starved. Seraphine lost rank, inheritance, and every political privilege she had conspired to steal from Elara and others. At Elara's coronation, the 7-pack banners surrounded the Moonstone crown. She accepted sovereignty only after rewriting council law. Healers, border settlements, and smaller packs received permanent seats. Alaric resigned as regent, admitting protection had too often resembled control during her childhood and marriage to those he loved most deeply. Elara did not banish him from her life. She asked for honesty instead of sacrifice disguised as silence. Alaric accepted, and father and daughter began rebuilding trust without royal secrets between them. Their healing came slowly, through shared meals, difficult confessions, and promises kept afterward with patience on both sides. The old Luna ring was melted under Elara's order. From its silver, royal smiths forged a key to the kingdom's emergency granaries. Elara carried it during every inspection. What once represented a title granted by a man now opened food stores for families during winter storms across the entire realm. 1 year later, Aurelia slept in Darius's arms during his first supervised visit. He wore a border soldier's plain coat and asked permission before touching the child's silver curls. Elara watched from across the garden, alert but peaceful, knowing forgiveness did not require reunion or restored trust between them again. Lucien arrived after Darius departed. He brought no mate ring and made no claim upon Aurelia. Instead, he offered Elara a revised courtship oath. Its first line promised that she could choose him freely each day and leave without punishment whenever her heart changed or her peace required distance again. Elara read the oath beneath flowering winter roses. Then she took the iron key Lucien had once given her and placed it beside the new parchment. She signed her name because she wanted tomorrow with him, not because law, blood, pregnancy, or fate demanded it. For the first time, choice. So, this is where Elara's story closes. Are you still here with me? Then maybe this story touched something personal. Maybe you know what it feels like to be betrayed by someone who once promised to protect you. Maybe you have been misunderstood, replaced, or blamed for wounds you did not create. Elara felt all of that. She was hurt deeply, but she did not beg for a place in a life that no longer respected her. She walked away because staying would have cost her dignity. That is the quiet lesson here. We cannot control another person's loyalty honesty, or choices. We can only control what we accept, how we respond, and whether we abandon ourselves just to avoid being alone. Walking away does not mean you never loved them. It means you finally stopped using love as an excuse to tolerate disrespect. And yes, choosing yourself may feel lonely at first. It may even feel like taking the longest road with the worst weather, but at least it leads somewhere honest. If Alara's strength meant something to you, leave one word in the comments: dignity. And if this story stayed with you, please like, share it with someone who may need it, and subscribe for more stories about betrayal, courage, and choosing yourself again. Dedict logo.